Is it wrong for me to choose my friendship with my ex over the guy I'm dating now? The title sounds bad, I know. Please bear with me, I'll try to give as much context as possible. So, Ben and I have been friends for a bit over 5 years now. During this time, we dated twice, but never over 3 months. The first time was from December 2015 to February 2016, and the second time in May 2017. We split amicable both times and figured that we just worked better as friends after all. We weren't romantically involved after that, but we did kiss in a game of Truth or Dare in September. It basically confirmed to me that we were just friends because I felt nothing. Ben and I have so much in common and we know each other so well that it's a running joke in our friend group that I'd be able to read his mind. Of course, this is not true, but we can talk to each other openly and are just really comfortable around one another. We helped each other through dark times and I can always count on him. Ben is one of my closest friends who just happens to be my ex. We joke about our failed relationships like, what were we thinking, LOL, and stuff like, been there, done that, fool me twice, and so on. It's really just a joke to us by now, and we will never try having a relationship ever again. Now, in late October, I met this guy. Let's call him Chris. We met at a party and hit it off right away. We had a deep conversation and ended the night with a hookup. We didn't get in contact right away after that, but by the end of November, we started seeing each other. We haven't had the defining the relationship talk yet, but we agreed that we enjoyed getting to know each other and liked how things were for now. Fast forward a bit. My best friend and her boyfriend wanted to throw a New Year's Eve party. They invited all our friends and allowed dates to come along too. I thought this would be a great opportunity for Chris to meet all my friends officially. I already knew that Ben would be there, so I mentioned it to Chris. I had already told him that I was still friends with an ex. Chris told me that he wasn't bothered and that it shouldn't bother him anyway since we weren't even official yet. I was happy that he took it so well, but reassured him that he could always tell me if he ended up being bothered and he wouldn't have to play cool just because we aren't BF and GF yet. The night of the party comes, I introduce Chris as the guy I've been dating for a month now to my friends. We drink, we mingle, I catch up with them, Chris gets to know some of them and seems to enjoy it. Midnight comes, we start the countdown, and I kiss Chris as the new year starts. After that, I make my rounds. I hug all my friends, wish them all the best, kisses on the cheek are exchanged, the usual. We celebrate some more and nobody gets home before 5 a.m. Chris calls the next day and tells me he had a good time and I should thank my friend for the invitation on his behalf. I do exactly that, and my friend tells me how lovely Chis had been and jokes that I should better make it official soon or else someone else will see what a catch he is and snatch him from me. Typical girl talk, you know. So it seemed that both my friends and my potential boyfriend nailed their first impressions. All was well until I met up with Ben for coffee on Sunday. Naturally, the party came up and I asked him what he thought of Chris. Ben was hesitant at first, but then told me that Chris had been a little frosty towards him. I decided to give Chris the benefit of the doubt. There were nearly 30 people at the party, and maybe he didn't get the chance to be in an in-depth conversation with Ben. So I didn't talk to Chris about this and told Ben that he might just be imagining things. Ben agrees, and we don't mention Chris again for the rest of the afternoon. Which brings us to yesterday evening. I was over at Chris's place. We just finished dinner and were thinking of watching a movie before hitting the sheets. The conversation drifted off, and Chris asked me about my weekend plans. I told him that some friends and I would meet for drinks on Saturday to celebrate a birthday. Then he asked me if Ben would be there. Not really knowing where he was going with this, I answered that yes, he would also be there. And that's where shit hit the fan. In a passive-aggressive tone, he said how ridiculous it was how much time we spent together, and that I should be with him if I loved him so much, and how I always spent more time with Ben than him, and how I hugged Ben for far too long on New Year's. I was so dumbstruck. Days before he told me he was cool with it, he even insisted that he was not at all bothered, and now this? I told him that I've hung out with Ben only 3 times since we started dating. Once for a Christmas celebration with some other people, once at the party on New Year's, and the only one-on-one time was the coffee we had on Sunday. I also hugged all my friends at the party and didn't really count seconds to measure who got the longest hug. I tried to tell him repeatedly that I have no feelings for Ben. I tried to reason with him, but he was really defensive all of a sudden and tried to argue that even if I didn't have feelings for Ben, he would most definitely still have the hots for me. That's where I got angry and told him that if he trusts me so little, we might as well end it then and there. He didn't want things to end, me neither, and told me that he could really see a future with me if it wasn't for Ben. I explained that Ben is my friend, and I won't ditch a friend for a guy who is this insecure only a month into dating. I didn't spend the night and went home instead. I still really like Chris, but leaving friends behind is a huge deal breaker for me. He texted me this morning and asked me if I wanted to talk things over. I haven't responded yet, and I honestly don't know what to do now. My head is a mess. I don't want things to end with Chris. It's been so good up until now, but I can't lose Ben either. Additional comment/info from OOP. On seeing the situation from the outside and how it looks. You're right. My interactions with Ben feel natural to me, but I've never taken an outside perspective into account. I only briefly talked to Ben at the party as Chris was my priority and I wanted to make sure he felt welcome. I talked more with my girlfriends that night. I'd hoped that my friends wouldn't joke about my ex being my soulmate in front of Chris, but I probably should have had a word with them before the party just to be safe. Apart from an occasional hug, Ben and I rarely have physical contact, and I also wouldn't describe 4 months total as an extensive romantic history, but I see what you're getting at. Overall, we are a pretty open and close-knit group, and I don't think I treat Ben different from the others. Chris overreacted and handled his jealousy not very well. I'm going to meet him tonight and see if we can talk things over. I'll try my best to be insightful and understand his concerns, but I do hope that he will apologize and get that Ben is my friend, and I won't let him dictate my friendships. I've only dated 2 other guys aside from them. One in July 2016, but we hadn't much in common, so we ended it early, and he never got to meet my friends. The second guy was from September 2017 to March 2018. He and Ben met a few times and always were civil. The guy wasn't really the jealous type and said he can live with it, and we never really had to argue over our relationships with other people. We split in March because we kind of faded out and weren't into each other enough to work on the relationship. So yeah, thing with Chris is that I really wanted this to work, but I've never had to deal with jealousy before and I'm a bit overwhelmed. Chris and I have a lot in common and worked well so far. I was really close to ask him to be official before his outburst, and now I'm left to see how things turn out tonight. I hope we can recover from this. I still really like him.
Update. Thanks to all the people who gave me their advice and perspective on the matter. It was greatly appreciated and helped me sort my priorities out. First, let me clear up some things I probably should have made clearer in the original post. The thing with the mind reading is not really meant to be taken as a soulmate situation. Ben sometimes struggles to get a point across, but I seem to get it most of the times and can tell people what he meant to say. So I think this got blown out of proportion a bit. I should have phrased this differently. Sorry. Also, many people referred to Chris as my boyfriend in their comments, which he was not. We were dating for a month and weren't an official couple. Another thing I should have talked about is how Ben and I ended up dating for a second time. An acquaintance told us that it was a shame that us dating never worked out, and we decided to test the waters again. Not even a month in, I said that it did not feel right. He agreed and said how relieved he was that I felt it too, and we went back to being friends. That was considerably easy since we hadn't even had sex in that month. Chris knew that the second time wasn't all that serious. One comment was suspicious of why Ben hadn't moved on, so I probably should have mentioned that Ben had a girlfriend from February to June 2018. I liked her and she was always lovely to me. She left him because, ironically, she still had feelings for her ex, so I thought it would be safe to assume that he'd be over me as well. None of my close friends talked about my history with Ben, and they didn't joke about us at the party. They genuinely want me to be happy, and most of them instantly liked Chris. However, something did happen at the party that ended up causing all this mess. So buckle up, folks. Now that that's been said, let's move on to the shit show that's been my life for the last couple of days. After reading some of your comments, I texted Chris back and agreed to talk about things that night, under the condition that we both will be civil and adult about it. He was fine with that, and I came over to his place. Chris started the conversation by immediately apologizing for how aggressive he reacted and how stupid he felt for not being able to keep it together. He said it wasn't fair of him to mistrust me and that his jealousy was ridiculously overblown considering we weren't even official. I told him that it's okay if he gets jealous or uncomfortable, but I just wished we could have talked about it before things escalated. I apologized for not being sensitive enough to realize that no matter what he said to me, he wouldn't exactly be thrilled with the situation. I could have made more of an effort to reassure him and adapt situations so that we could both be happy. We both made it clear that it would make us sad if things ended before they had even begun, and we'd probably end up regretting not giving this another shot. After all, we have this crazy chemistry and got along so well. Now, all that seemed to stand in the way of a happy ending was an awkward conversation about my friendship with Ben. But before I could even get into it, Chris dropped this bomb. So, at the party, he overheard Ben and his best friend talking. Ben said how awful it was to see me with another guy and how unfair it was that we weren't an item. He did not know what to do with that. He said that that's where what little jealousy and insecurity he had went from 0 to 100, and he couldn't help seeing red. He weighed his options and thought that if he'd tell me, it'd end in a situation where it's his word against Ben's, and I'd believe Ben more. He also didn't want to be that guy that ruined a friendship. So he swallowed his feelings until they burst out when I casually mentioned hanging out with Ben. As he told me that, I put my guard up and took it with more than just a grain of salt. That story sounded almost cartoonishly convenient. Some people in the comments warned me that he could try to manipulate me, and I had to look out for myself. I told him in all honesty that I'd have to talk to some other people, as it was hard to take his word for it given the current situation. He was very understanding and told me that to whatever solution I'd come, he'd have to accept it because, as he put it, he lost the right to be involved in this with throwing a jealous fit. I disagreed, but he was adamant about me having to find my truth. We ended the night with me telling him that I really wanted to trust in what he said to me for the sake of salvaging our relationship. But it was just so hard, and I was so confused. He again said that he understands and that I should take my time to sort things out. Then he gave me a long hug. Yes, this one was actually long, and I left to figure things out. And oh boy, did I figure things out. The first thing that came into my head was that at the party in September, the one where I was dared to kiss Ben, guess who thought of the dare? It was Ben's best friend, who, if I'd take Chris's word, would know if Ben still had feelings for me. Ben's friend was also the person who suggested playing Truth or Dare in the first place, even though he usually doesn't like that many drinking or party games. Then I thought about how weird Ben acted when I asked him about Chris. At the time, I was convinced that he just didn't want to hurt my feelings, but what if he just saw his chance of getting Chris out of the picture and held an inner debate whether he should act on it? My head was in bits and pieces as I overanalyzed basically every interaction I had with Ben the past months. I had to rip the Band-Aid off and talk to Ben directly. So I asked him if he'd be free after work, and he came over. We usually don't spend time alone at each other's place, so he knew that something wasn't quite right. It was very awkward, but I had carefully thought about what to say beforehand, which made it a bit easier. I told Ben that I value our friendship, but had gotten the suspicion that he might want more out of our relationship than I could give him, and asked if this was true. Ben is a bad liar, so he got defensive instead, and asked me if Chris wanted to separate us. He used that phrasing, separate us. I told him that it did not matter if Chris was involved in this, because I just wanted a clear answer on whether us being friends was enough for him or not. He avoided the answer, asking again if this was because of Chris. He spun in circles trying to change the subject and ended up saying some mean things about Chris not being a good person and whatnot. Reminder that their first and only interaction had been at the party. However, I stayed focused as I wanted an answer. Given his avoiding of my question was answer enough, but I was getting angry with him and I wanted him to spell it out. After some more back and forth, he finally snapped. Fine. I thought that we'd eventually get back together, and it was only a matter of time until you realized that we were meant to be. You should be with me, then we wouldn't have to deal with this. His words still echo in my head. Like, what? I could have handled him having a little crush on me or if he felt that some things were left unresolved. But this? It felt like my entire world was shattered. All these years of friendship, he just stuck around to one day get back together with me. Everything we've been through and everything he did for me was just so that I'd eventually realize that we should date again. I told him that I couldn't return his feelings, not now and not in the future. We had tried twice, it didn't work out, at least for me it didn't, and I saw nothing that could change that. I wanted us to be friends, but I don't think it is possible under these conditions. He got pretty worked up about it, and it was like watching someone go through all stages of grief except acceptance. We can still work this out. This is unfair. Nobody will ever love me. I'll change and we can try again in a few months. It took a lot out of me, but I remained calm and told him that it'd be better if we stopped seeing each other for quite some time. Then I asked him to leave. I was exhausted and honestly creeped out. I felt so betrayed. This person that I was so close to and that I trusted was always acting with an ulterior motive. I called my best friend, and once she heard me sob through the speaker, she got in her car and came over. I told her what had happened, and she was horrified. She had no idea. As word spread in these last 2 days, it turned out that my friends didn't know about his feelings either, and most of them were shocked and repelled by how he acted. I got some amazing support from my friends, and they were great at helping me not lose my head over this so far. Chris and I talked yesterday, and I apologized for putting him in such a horrible situation. I hadn't wanted for us to start out with this level of drama. Chris believes that I wasn't to blame, but I still think I should have realized some things earlier. It's been 5 years of friendship, for Christ's sakes. Chris was very sweet. He ordered food from my favorite takeout place, we watched a movie, and cuddled up on the sofa. He said that he was glad that we came out okay, and somehow everything was worth the struggle in the end. He also asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend, and I said yes.